Chris Sauter with the first Operation Valkyrie video review that well, Anaram, because I'm the Anaram maker, and if you go to my YouTube you'll see it. But you can also check us out at sequelbuzz.com. I'll be posting the link in my annotations. Check it out. Nick Meese runs the site. It's really good, Sequel Buzz. So, the first review, here we go, Operation Valkyrie. I'm a very huge Tom Cruise fan. I don't mean that as something funny. I don't mean that as something... I think that when his legacy of films, they make the box set of Tom Cruise, he's going to be up there with some of the greats, like the Al Pacinos, the Robert De Niros, even the old guys, the Coopers, the Cagneys, the people that, like, every movie that they made, that they never made, or even if they made commercial movies or whatever, like every movie that he's done, you can't say that he was phoning it in or he sucked. Even people loved him. Tropic Thunder, even as a comedic throwaway cameo, he was still great in that movie. One of the best things about that movie, in addition to Robert Downey Jr. Speaking of, he was at one point rumored to be Tom Cruise, and he was at one point rumored to be Tom Cruise because that's who he was, Iron Man, I meant. So, yeah, I sound stupid, and my hair is Operation Valkyrie. So this movie, one of the first things I saw the screening, one of the first things I was glad is that when you first see the movie, you're going to, he plays, let me get the names here because I'm not good with German, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, and this guy was essentially, to Germans, essentially seen as the traitor, because if you didn't know what this movie's about, I don't want to spoil anything, but the story is basically, it's basically these guys come up with a plan to kill Adolf Hitler and take over his Germany, and with this Operation Valkyrie, which they have to get Hitler to sign, and then basically it states that once Hitler's killed, they can take over, and they could just take over diplomatically and everything, and it's very interesting, and the way it plays out is good. Keep in mind, these are not German actors playing German Nazis, so that was something that, when Mel Gibson makes his movies like Apocalypto or Passion of the Christ, it's really great that he always keeps the language and he always hires unknown actors that nobody knows that do speak the language, and this movie doesn't do that, but I just want to make it known as an annotation, everyone is speaking German, but kind of like Doctor Who, you know how in Doctor Who where he'll explain, like, how come they're speaking English? It's like, no, that's the TARDIS. They're speaking their own language, but you're just hearing it in English. Well, that's the same thing, because this movie starts with Tom Cruise reading something, he's writing and he's reading in German, and then it kind of just shifts over to English. So I think that was basically meant to imply everybody in here is speaking German all the time. They're never speaking any other language, but we're just hearing it as English. So that I liked, because I was kind of like, I hate in movies when you see, Spanish people only speak English, or French people speak English, or French, there's really no point to it, and especially for something like this. But, so my thoughts, I think one of the biggest problems, I like talking about the movie, there's nothing wrong with it, in the sense that it's true to what it was. There is the camera work is what you expect from a Bryan Singer movie. Very, he likes to focus on objects and then kind of, like it's all about the object and about the map, and then zoom out and it gets to this and then the briefcase, and he's very meticulous about picking certain objects and going with them, and just kind of showing you just showing you that way, as opposed to doing something like Darren Aronofsky and visually going all over the place and showing you new camera moves or new techniques to show you something interesting. I think one of the biggest problems when I was talking to people at the screening, and I go, can you remember any movie where it was true to what they were playing? And we brought up American History X and saying, like, if ever you have a guy who, let's say he's a slave owner and he owns slaves, and then you bring that into a movie, everybody always plays it like, well, my audience obviously is not going to like this character, so I'm going to try and make you understand and sympathize and go, okay, you don't agree, but let's look at things from his perspective. And that's kind of what they do here with the Germans, where they don't agree with Hitler, and you see that, and they're very ashamed. You can see of like we've done things that we're not proud of, and we don't agree with Hitler. And the whole movie is about showing that not everybody was like Hitler. Not everybody. It's just people just took an oath. It's kind of like saying that if people who hate America, not everybody who lives under American rule is exactly like George W. Bush, and we want to kill Iraqis, and we want to kill. Some of us are against it. Some of us are apathetic. Some of us are just like, I don't even consider it. So I like that aspect. But I think one of the things I did want to see in the movie that you don't see is the fact that these are Nazis. And I mean, when it comes down to playing a Nazi, it's nice to see different layers to them, but at the same time, it's like, there's no Jew killing in this movie. I mean, I don't think there's any Jews in the movie except Bryan Singer, who made it. And there's no sense of like, you never get to see the horrific things that the Nazis did. And I guess you could say, well, we've seen that in too many other movies. But I really wanted to feel that sense of like, it would have been interesting to see what these characters, just see, like, have some kind of scene that shows, like, sets up like that they're doing these things and they don't agree with it, or show me an element of that shows, well, we keep hearing about these German concentration camps and these things, and kind of make mention to it, and they don't think it's something that happens, because that's something a lot of German officers were like, we don't really know about the concentration camps. So that would have been interesting to see that kind of aspect of maybe have scenes where these scenes are not in the movie. You don't see anything about, like I say, you just see officers. And it's very, I mean, just, you wouldn't even think they were Nazis. You would think they were Russians. I mean, just by the fact that you don't think Nazi. And I think that's one of the elements that I felt lacked, is that you never really truly believe that these are Nazis, or you believe like, oh, that's a scary Nazi. You just kind of see people in uniform going about their business, doing their thing, and their thing is exterminating, and eradicating all human life that isn't German or Aryan, which is kind of what Hitler was speaking about. Another aspect of this movie that I want to establish is that, with Hitler, you see him in this movie, and a lot of people have played Hitler, and you see caricatures. And one of the things that I've always say what you want about Hitler, he was very fascinating in the sense that how a guy who was essentially a poor German artist got a platform of power to destroy, essentially, and conquer various countries and continents. It's incredible that he was able to dominate, and that's something that you never. And really, the main reason was because he was such a great speaker. I mean, you can't fault him that he was a great speaker. He was very passionate. They would say, like, even if you go back, the Germans would say he was very passionate, and he would be screaming, and he would run out of, like, he was very, like, spit would come out of his mouth. The guy was very into what he was saying, very screaming, and he'd become like possessed of speaking, and you don't see that version of Hitler here. He's very quiet and